Hi everyone, welcome to the Coding Channel. Today is the 8th episode of our Java tutorial series for beginners. And in this episode, we are going to build a Java application program named Employee Salary Calculator. Listen more when we come back. In today's episode, we are going to create a Java application program to solve the employee salary calculator. So basically, this is a test for us to incorporate the skills that you have learned from our previous episode, specifically from episode 1 up to episode 7. So we'll try to incorporate that and join me as I solve this simple problem. Okay, so let me read now the problem, okay, that we are going to solve. Okay, an ABC company standard work week is 40 hours. Now, any time that exceeds 40 hours is considered overtime, and employees earn 1.5 times the hourly rate. Now, create a Java application program named Employee Salary Calculator that will prompt the user to enter an employee ID, employee name, total number of hours worked in a week, and their hourly rate per hour in a console window. Your program then compute and print the weekly payroll report in console window column format with the following: employee ID, the employee name, hours worked, hourly rate, basic pay, number of hours, overtime, overtime rate, the overtime pay, the gross salary, and then also we are tasked to print the employee's payslip in a text area using text area that is attached to a message dialog. Now, for you to have a visualization on what we're going to do for today's episode, let me show you the sample run. Okay, so first we will prompt the user to enter the employee ID. So for instance, we have 3421, and then the employee name, for example, we have Juan Reyes, and then number of hours work of an employee, let's say for example 56, and then the hourly rate per hour, for example 101.5. okay, once you press the enter key, so this is an example of a basic payslip of an ABC company, okay, with information like the employee ID, the name, the number of hours worked, the hourly rate, and then it now computes the overtime, and then the overtime rate, and then the overtime pay, and then the basic pay, and then the basic pay plus OT pay. So that is now the gross salary. Okay, so these are uh, the heart of the problem actually. Okay, so once you click the OK button, okay, so this is now an example of a basic weekly payroll report in column format. Okay, we have the employee ID here. Okay, as you can see, we typed Juan Reyes there in lowercase, same with the employee ID, but in our output, we have an uppercase string now. And then also, we will try to have an output. Let's say, for example, we have a lot of floating point values here. So we will format the number of decimal points or the precision. Okay. Let's say this one has only one decimal format. This one has a two decimal format with a peso sign, for example. And also once the number or the amount exceeds 1000 or greater than 1000, so automatically there is a comma, okay, that that is automatically inserted there. So later I'll show you how to do it. So if you're interested about this, let's start. Let's try to close this output now, and let's start coding. Okay, so let's review the problem first. Again, an ABC company standard work week is 40 hours. Any time that exceeds 40 hours is considered overtime. And employees earn 1.5 times the hourly rate. Okay, so now the first thing that you need to do is, of course, we will be needing a lot of variables, right? So let's have a variable declaration here first. Okay, what are the variables needed? First, as you can see, we have a fixed work week, or the standard work week. Okay, so if that is the case, that we have a value which is constant. So in Java, we can declare a constant variable using final. So for example, a final, and then let's say this one is an integer. So int, and then for example, let's name this one standard work. So make it a point every time that you name a variable that is a final, make it in all in uppercase. Okay. Oh, you need a value there. Okay. So that is now final. So this one cannot be changed anymore. Okay. That's the meaning of a final there. Okay. So we are just reviewing the lessons, yes, that you have learned from our previous episode. If you haven't watched our previous episode, so I suggest that you watch it after this. Okay. So now another, what are the variables that are needed? We have since we are going to prompt the user to enter employee ID and then the employee name. Oh, so when we talk about employee ID, and then for example the input is E-1234. So basically we will be we will declare a variable of type string for that. So for example a string, and let's try to have emp ID. Okay, what else? We have employee name. So name is a string, so we can just have emp name. What else? Employee name, and then the total number of hours worked. So basically this type of employee, because there are a lot of types of employees. We have managers, okay, we have commission worker, we have hourly worker. So what we're doing now is that this is an example of an hourly employee, right? Meaning their salary depends on the number of work in a week. Okay, so let's continue. We have a total number of hours to work and then hourly rate. Okay, so the number of hours work, number of hours could have a decimal point. So let's try to use okay, double for that. So number of hours work, let's try to name it RH work. Okay, let's try to have hours work. Okay, something like that. Hours work, and then another, so double hourly rate this time. So hourly rate. Okay, that's it. What else? Employee name, the total number of hours worked, hourly rate. Okay, and then we need to compute and print the weekly payroll. And we will be needing another, say employee ID, the employee name, hours worked, the hourly rate. Okay, we will be needing a basic pay, and that is also double. So, oh my, double, what's happening to my hand? Okay, double, and then basic pay. Okay. Next, we will be needing another variable, number of hours overtime. Okay, so for example, we have double overtime. Okay. Rest. Overtime rate. So we'll have an overtime rate. What else? Overtime pay. Double overtime pay. And then the gross salary. Okay, and that is also of a double data type. gross salary. What else? Okay, so far. Later we will just add if we will be needing another variable names. Okay, now our first task after the variable declaration, the second step is of course the input statement. Okay, since we are going to get the user input from the console, so the first step every time we have an input statement using console, we need to instantiate or create an object of a scanner class. So that is the first thing that you need to do when we talk about input statement. Okay, scanner. Let's try to name this keyboard. Okay, so keyboard is equal. I don't know. I just keyboard only, and then is equal to new scanner. Okay, so that is the syntax. And then don't forget to import the scanner class within java.awt. Okay. Next, I'm sorry, this one is keyboard, not okay. Okay, so after that, we can now use the method of scanner. Okay, but we need to prompt the user first. Okay, system.out, for example, that print what? Enter an employee. Okay, ID. Okay, something like that. So this is an output statement. And then after that, to get the user input, that's the main reason why we have created the object name for the what? For the scanner. So because we will be needing that for us to access or reuse the methods of scanner class, which is in this case, if you are going to get a string value coming from the user, so we'll be needing the next line. Okay, and then we will after we get the string input coming from the user, we will now store in a variable emp id, for example. So emp id is equal to keyboard dot next line. Okay, and then I just have to copy this one here, and then for example this one is for the name, and then since this one is another string, so I will be just changing this one to emp name. Okay, another input. Aside from that, we will be needing two more inputs, which is the hours work and hourly rate. Okay, so these are double, right? So enter hours work. Enter the number of hours work. Okay, that's it. And then, if you are going to get the input, which is a double data type, we will be using next double instead of next line. And then, we will assign two hours work. This one. Put it here. Okay. Then, another, the last input, I guess, enter the hourly rate. Okay. Enter the hourly rate. Okay, and then also that is a double data type, so we will still use the next double, and then we will just change this one, hourly rate, and we just have to put it here. Okay, so that's it. These are done the input statements. Okay, so let's try to run first. Okay, so enter employee ID, for example, E.1234. Employee name, for example, okay, Juan Reyes. Just first. Okay, the number of hours worked, for example, 45, and then the hourly rate is, for example, 50. Okay, so far so good. Next, after the variable declarations and then the input statements, It's about time to solve the problem. Okay, or should I say the process or the solution? Okay, now let's try to analyze the problem. Um, of course, basically our goal is to get the gross salary. Okay, for us to determine the gross salary of an employee. Okay, so let's try to analyze first. But before that, the gross salary, there is a basic pay, right? The basic pay meaning if the this is a standard work per week. Okay, it does not have overtime. Okay, so what if, here's the first question, is there a possibility that the user um work week is less than 40? Because take note, the standard work week is 40. It's like having 5 days of work, Monday to Friday, and then per day there is a maximum of 8 hours. So that's a standard work. So 8 times 5 is 40 hours. So if an employee, for example, um, exceeded the standard work week, so it means that there is an overtime. Okay, so let's try first to determine. In this case, this one is conditional. We will try now to apply the skills that you have learned in our episode 7, which is about the if statements. Okay, so we will use this one here. So if what? If what? If the the hours work. Okay, let's talk about the hours work. If the hours work is less than, right, or equal, or less than or equal to the standard work. Okay, so meaning no more OT. Okay, either less than, there's an absences. Okay, so that's possible. So what are we going to do? Okay, if the hours work is less than or equal to standard work, which is the value is 40, we will now compute for the basic pay. It's very easy to compute, right? So what are we going to do? We will just multiply the number of hours worked and the hourly rate. Okay, as simple as that. Let's try and then semicolon. Okay, if hours work is, and then since this one has no OT, so we can say that the gross salary here is the basic pay, right? That's it. That's how we do it. Now, what if the number of hours worked is greater than 40? So that would be the time that we will put an else here. Okay, but first we will compute the basic pay. So we have again a basic pay here. So the basic pay here, computation of the basic pay here is standard work, right? So 40 times the hourly rate. Okay, times the hourly rate. That's it. So there is a difference in computing the basic pay for the employee having less than 40 number of hours work or equal to 40. So in here, we need to get the basic pay by multiplying the standard work, which is 40 times hourly rate, okay, without overtime. And then the next step is, of course, to know the number of overtime. For example, the user have entered 45. Okay, so the standard work is 40. So meaning there is a 5 hours OT already, or overtime. Okay, of an employee. So we will use the overtime variable here. Okay, we'll just add here. So what do you think is the formula to compute for the overtime? So overtime is what? The number of hours worked, let's say 45, right? Number of hours worked of an employee, and then minus, let's try to subtract the standard work, which is 40. So the excess, that would be now the number of hours overtime, right? So hours work, 45 minus 40, so we have now 5. Okay, next, how do we know now the overtime pay? Okay, so let's talk about overtime pay. Overtime or overtime rate. Okay, how to compute for the overtime rate? Because normally, the overtime rate is different to the basic pay. Okay, so for instance, if the basic rate is 100 per hour, okay, the overtime rate is different. Normally, it's higher. So let's try to read again the problem. An ABC company standard work week is 40 hours. Any time that exceeds 40 hours is considered overtime, and employees earn 1.5 times, okay, the hourly rate. So meaning 100 times 1.5. Okay, so that is how we compute the overtime rate. So 100 is coming from the hourly rate, right? That's hourly rate. Let's put it here. Hourly rate times the 1.5. Okay. For example, the simplest explanation, if the hourly rate is 10, so the overtime rate now per hour is around 15 pesos, for example. Okay, if we say double, so 20 pesos if the basic rate is 10, right? Okay, so that's now the how we compute for the overtime rate. So what else? Before we can compute the gross salary for those worker having an overtime, what else do we need? We have now the overtime rate, so we will now compute the overtime pay, right? Since we know now the rate. Okay, so what do you think is the formula for to compute for the overtime pay? Since we know now the overtime rate, we will just use this, okay? And then we will multiply to the number of overtime, right? So let's say again, 45 minus 40. So we have 5 hours overtime. And then we know the rate of overtime of an employee by using the overtime rate here. Okay, so that's it. So that's how we compute for the overtime pay. And then we can now solve the gross salary, the total, okay, including the overtime pay. So how to compute for the gross salary? Okay, very easy. We know the basic pay, okay, right? And then we will just add the overtime pay. Okay, simple as this, right? And semicolon. Okay. Okay, so that is the process now. What's next? Let's try to display now the uh, the payslip. Okay, so print payslip. To print the payslip, we will be needing JTextArea and the JOptionPane. Okay, so we will instantiate it here first. So we have the JTextArea. Let's say, for example, my area is equal to new JTextArea, and then for example, we have 15, the number of rows and the number of columns. And again, don't forget to import the JTextArea within javax.swing package. And then at the same time, we will be using the JOptionPane here. Okay, so based on what you've learned from our previous episode, we will be using the show message dialog. Okay, and then again, JOptionPane, I need to import a javax.swing. The first argument should be null, and then the second argument here should be the text area or the my area. Okay, so my area, that's the name, the object name of our text area. And then if we want to change the text on the title bar of our message dialog, let's say we want to change it to payslip instead of message string. So that's the third argument. And then if we want to use the plain type of icon, meaning no icon, so again we will be using the JOptionPane that let me just that plain underscore message. Okay, so that's it. But take note, we only attach the text area in our message dialog, but we haven't write anything on it. To write a text, okay, inside of the text area, we will be needing the object name, which is my area text. Okay, so that's the syntax, and then we will write here the needed information that we want to include in our payslip. And just for us to save a time, so let me just write this one here, type here. Okay, and I will just explain this one to you. So first, I want to have a text area having that I cannot that's uneditable. So I use here the set editable method, and then with the value false. And then I want also to change the default font. I want to change it to Tahoma, and then font that bold, and then the size is 28, for example. Okay, so again, import the font under java.awt. Okay, java.awt, and then inside of the set text, okay, I've for example, we want to have to include the name of the company, and then second line, for example, a payslip. Okay, so I just use the escape character \t here just to have a space, one tab, for example, and then new line character, and then another \t, and then a simple design, and then the string concatenation operator, and then what are the informations or data needed in our payslip. So we have an employee ID, and then the employee ID variable, employee name, emp name, hours work, hourly rate, overtime, OT rate, and then OT pay. Okay, now, what's the meaning of F format here? Okay, before that, since the output is, I want to have, since this one is double, we're talking of money here, so I want to have a format having a peso sign, a comma, and then 2 decimal places. So that is possible by what? We need to instantiate a DecimalFomat class. DecimalFomat, for example, f, that's an object name, is equal to new DecimalFomat. And then you specify here, inside of the parentheses, your desired format. So for instance, I want to have a peso sign, and then for instance, if the value exceeds 1,000, so I want to have a 0 there, and then comma, and then for example we have a 0.00. Okay, so let's try this one. Okay. Okay, so I want to have, let's say if 1000, sorry. Okay, that's it. So we have a 0, comma, 000, then 00. Then if we're going to use now the object name, take note, decimal format is under the java.text uh, package, that decimal format. Okay, and then we're going to use this. So decimal format has a method, a format method. So that's why you can see here f.format, and then inside of the parentheses is the variable name that I want to format. That I want these three variables to follow my desired format. Okay, that's how we use a decimal format inside of the setText method. Okay, so this one is basically uh, it's like we're just writing inside of the text area. And then after we write, so that's the time that we attach the text area in our message dialog. So that's why the second argument here is the object name of text area. Okay, so let's try to run this one. Okay, there's a okay. So what's the error? We have the local variable, okay, may not have been initialized. Okay, so we forgot to initialize a variable. So again, if you want to use, for example, this one, the overtime rate, okay, to display the output, okay, better to initialize it first. So we forgot to initialize. So let's try to have an initial value of 0 there. Okay, that's the best solution. Let's try to have an initial value before we print. Okay, by including the basic pay. Okay, again, let's try to run. Okay, so there we go. Employee ID. So we have E and then 1345. Okay, name, for example. And then number of hours work. For example, we have 56. So meaning Saturday, Sunday, 2 days OT, per day 8 hours, so 816. So that's why 40 plus, okay, 16. And then hourly rate 100, for example, per hour. I mean, that's the basic rate, right? Okay, and then after the computation, so here's the sample of payslip. We have now the dialog box or the message dialog with a payslip there. We changed that. That's the third argument. And then the employee ID. Okay, let me try to show you this one. So we have the employee ID, hours work 56, okay, 100, the overtime 16. Yes, because the standard work is 40, right? And then the OT rate 150. So meaning if your basic salary is 100 per hour, so times 1.5, 1.5 times your basic salary, that's why the OT rate is 150. Okay, that's the problem. That's yeah. And then to compute for the OT pay, so we have 2,400. So meaning we have a 16 times 150. So we have an OT pay of 2,400 here. And then basic pay, we have 4,000. And then the gross salary, so 6,400 is the sum of the basic pay, which is 4,000, and the OT pay. Okay, simple as that. So this is now the pay slip. So the last thing that we need to accomplish is the sample weekly report over here. So since that one is in column format, so we will be using the column output formatting that you have learned from our previous episode. Okay, so just again, just to save a time, let me just copy the codes that I've created a while ago. Okay, just have output. Okay, so and let me just explain this one to you one by one. Okay, so first we have an output statement using println because I just want to have a new line. Okay, a vertical space after the input statement. And then we've discussed already the printf, right? So for example, let's try to focus on this one. Okay, once you the first argument of printf again is the string format. Okay, meaning the first argument, if you can see the percent sign there, and then for example percent %s, so meaning you want to have that's the second argument, for example, is a string. Okay, string type. And then the 45 is the number of spaces allotted, including white space. Okay, so let's try to comment this one first. It's for you to know to see it one by one. Okay, let's try to run first. Okay, well, for example, we have employee name, we have, or any name, Ana Reyes. Sorry. Okay, work. Okay, 45, and then 99. Okay, here's the output, and then we have now the ABC company. Okay, so this is now the 45 from the left margin. Okay, so that's the sample output. Okay, so 45 meaning positive, so that is right aligned. So by default, okay, once you put a 45, a positive 45, so the ABC company is right aligned. Okay, so next, we have, but take note, we have used the \n there, meaning after printing the ABC company, so it forces the new line. Okay, so that before we print the weekly payroll report, this one will be printed on the next line. Okay, that's the meaning of that one, because printf again has no default new line, unlike using println. So it's like using print. Okay, so next, we have 50s, so you know that already, meaning you've allotted 50 spaces for this weekly payroll report. Okay, next, printf. Okay, so if we're going to, for example, we want to display the columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, 9 column headings. Okay, let's talk about for the first column heading. So this code, the percent sign -8 or -8s, okay, is the format for this column name, emp id. So meaning we are reserving 8 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 plus 3 white spaces. Okay. Now, if we put negative there, it only means that we want this emp ID to be left aligned, because by default, it's right aligned if it's positive. Just like what we did in ABC company and weekly payroll report. Okay. So that's the meaning of negative there. Okay. Another, so %s. So take note, if you put a space here, so that space will be added in between the emp ID and emp name. So that's why I don't use or put a space there. Okay, so the % again with -12s is for this third argument, the emp name. So I've allotted 12 spaces, okay, for this one. And then negative meaning left aligned, s because I want to because this one is a string type. Okay, and this one, the %sign -8s is for the H work, and then this one is for the %sign -6s, small s. Take note, the small s and the capital S has two different meanings. Okay, when we use the small s, meaning lowercase. Okay, or if you're going to later, I'll just discuss with you. Okay, so for example, this one is for the word, and actually all of these column names are string, right? So that's why we have s there, s, 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 s. So the only difference is the number of characters that I specified here. Okay, and then at the end of the format string, we have a backslash n, so that after printing gross salary, so there's a new line. Okay, and then the last output statement that we have is the values now, or the data, or the employee information. Okay, under this column headings. Okay, now for the emp ID, for example, I have here percent negative 8s, but take note is a capital S. Okay, so that if the user have entered an emp ID and an emp name in lowercase, the output is still in uppercase, or yes, in uppercase, the emp ID and the emp name. And then for the hours work, what's the data type of hours work? Hours work is what? Double. So that's why we use F here. Okay, so this one, the negative 8.1F for the hours work. What does it mean? Okay, again, the negative 8, or 8 meaning 8 spaces. Negative, left aligned. I want to display this one left aligned. And then F, because it's double. The 0.1 here is the number of decimal points, or the precision. Okay, so that's the meaning of that. So 8.1 meaning it's like 10.1, 10.9, something like that. Next, hourly rate. For the hourly rate, so I have allotted here negative 6.1 F. And you know that already, the meaning of that. Same with the overtime, and then the overtime rate. Okay, now the overtime rate I have here %sign negative 8.1 F P. Okay, now take note, if you want to have an out no, not including that one. This one is for the overtime. Sorry, for the overtime rate, this one, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this one, 1, 2, 3. For the overtime pay. Okay, for the overtime pay, this one, the 11.2F. Okay, so P meaning it's like a peso sign. Okay, before the % sign, comma, once the value of overtime pay exceeded to 1,000, for example, so automatically there is a comma. Okay, so this one is it's like a comma separated. Okay, and then negative 11 left aligned, and then 11 is the number of spaces. 0.2 meaning I want this one to have a 2 decimal places, and these are F meaning a double data type. Okay, so let's try for you to see the final output. Okay, but there is an error first. Okay, let's try. Hopefully get now the correct answer. Let's try to run. Employee ID, then E4567, and then for example we have Mark Tan. Number of hours work, for example we have 56, and then 101.4. Okay, enter. Okay, as you can see, we have the overtime rate, and here's the output now. Take note, Mark Tan and the employee ID, these are all in capital letters, and then the hours work, the hourly rate, the OT rate, overtime pay. We have a P, peso sign here, for example, and then since the output exceeded to 1,000, so there is automatically a comma there, and then in 2 decimal places. Okay, that's it. That's how we solve the problem. So if you have questions in this episode, just drop your comments in the comment section, and I will try to answer all your questions regarding this episode. So these are the source code for this. That's all for today. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, show your love through comments and favorites. God bless and thank you for watching.